pursuant to Act 976, and the Act essentially gave GIADEC a task, which is to promote and develop the integrated aluminium industry. So when we talk of integrated aluminium industry, we are talking about all the processes that is involved, all the processes in the value chain of adding value to our bauxite. So you look at mining, you look at refining, you look at smelting, you look at downstream, anything that gives us additional value for the natural resource, that's a bauxite that we have. That is what GIADEC is supposed to do. So that is what we are doing, and that is why we have the corporation established.
So in the couple of months that you have been here, in terms of delivering on your mandate, where would you say we are?
So when I assumed office, I think the first year, I assumed office in March. So I had just about 9 months of the year left to set the ball rolling. I recall I had a meeting with the management and indicated to them that I want things to be repositioned or redirected, because I'm looking at segmenting the mandates. Our mandate includes, some may have a different view, but I'm very much convinced our mandate includes mining, refining the bauxite, smelting it, and then selling it to the downstream. So I told them that mandate, from where I sit, cannot be achieved if we do not have full control of the bauxite reserves, because you cannot be created as an entity to oversee value addition of a particular product, and you don't have control over the product, because the structure as we had it was that the Minerals Commission has the product. GIADEC was supposed to go and look for investors, partner with the investors, and go to Minerals Commission to get a lease for that. I thought that it's not going to put GIADEC in a very strong position to bargain. So the first decision that I took was to go and get the concessions, the bauxite concessions, under the control and in the name of GIADEC. So that was the first task that I set out to do. And then thankfully I took office in March. By June, July, I think we had achieved that task. And then the leases, I think about 6 of them, from the information I picked currently, are being processed to Parliament for ratification. So that has been achieved. And also on the back of that, we developed our entire strategy, which was, before, the plan was to lump together maybe the value chain, the phases in the value chain, and give it to one particular investor. But we sat down, we thought about, what about those who may have interest in one aspect of the chain, but not necessarily interested in the chain? Because our job as GIADEC is to promote and develop it. So why don't we position ourselves as a supervisor and ensure that if someone comes and says that, I have the funds, my interest is in just build a refinery, you are GIADEC, make sure I get the raw material for the refinery, we can at least have a discussion with that person and see how we can progress in developing some of the pillars of our organization. So we decided to segment the phases, repackage our model, where we have the mining model, we have the refinery model, we have the smelting model. When I say smelt, I'm talking about the aluminum plant. And just to bring home the point, we're talking about a plant like Valco, because Valco is the only existing smelter that we have in Ghana. So how we have to now put them into different boxes and go out there and look for investors who want to put their money in these specific boxes, so that GIADEC together with them can develop it and build the value chain. And that's what we've been up to. And in terms of, based on this strategy, we've been able to made some considerable inroads. I think we've been able to secure an offtake with a company for bauxite, and then we've also been able to secure a funding facility from a company in the UAE, which I'm sure you may have read in the news, giving us $60 million to fund our mining activities. That's the downstream aspect of it, the upstream aspect of it, to fund some mining activities, because as part of our plans, and also to make the organization liquid, we decided that we will segment a portion of the concessions for what we decided to call the small mining. I don't want to use small scale mining because of currency, but with just to start some mining activities and generate some revenue immediately for the organization and the Republic, whilst we still put in the mechanisms to build the bigger facilities that we need to do what we refer in-house refer to in-house as the big push, where we can do big volumes of bauxite, go to the refinery, go to the smelter, and then we have the metal, possibly go to the downstream, then we can have the aluminum foil and all those other products. So that's what we categorize as the big push in-house. Okay. But this one is a small project where we are looking to immediately bring some revenue to the organization and then to the country. And also, as part of the promotional activities that we have a mandate to do, to promote that Ghana has bauxite. Our bauxite is of top quality, and this is it. This is a small portion of it, and if you come on board to invest, you are guaranteed of quality bauxite for the purpose of processing into alumina or aluminium. So this is what we have been up to, and I think based on that, we've gotten off-takes, we've gotten funding, and other activities and engagement are also ongoing. And we are hoping that by end of year, we should have the first bauxite moved from the ground, at least, so that we can all know that at least the bauxite no longer sits on the ground. We have taken steps to make sure that the country benefits from it. But that does not detract from the fact that we have a mandate to develop the value chain. So we are still committed to that, and that's what we are doing. And you may have also read in the news that a committee somewhere in November 2025 was inaugurated by the Honorable Minister Emmanuel Amakofi-Boa to review certain proposals that we have received as GIADEC for investment in construction of a refinery. I'll come back to the refinery and why it's important. Construction of a refinery and then the modernization of VALCO. Somewhere January this year, the committee submitted this report, and we are waiting for the ministers to go ahead so that we can engage the companies that were selected, and then we can have the conversation going. Because the reason why this committee and this work is important is because Ghana is blessed with the bauxite. We are blessed with a smelter, of course, although it's performing currently at a reduced capacity, 20% of its capacity.
And we'll talk more about VALCO later.
So, but what we don't have in the chain, a critical infrastructure we don't have in the chain is a refinery. Okay. So it's important for us to get a refinery before we can call ourselves a fully integrated aluminium industry country. So now that we have some investors who have shown interest in helping us or partnering with us to build a refinery, that puts us on the right track to developing the integrated aluminium industry.
And that's the importance
of GIADEC. And that is the importance of the refinery. That is the role of GIADEC, and that is why we need a refinery in the scheme of things.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sure that in all these things that you've decided to bring on board, based on the vision of the president and under your leadership here at GIADEC, how has the cooperation of staff been to some of these, new things? Because you're coming in with the private sector mentality as well.
So of course, I want to believe about 70 to 80% of the staff of GIADEC were all co-opted from the private sector. So a lot of them have the private sector orientation. And then I also want to believe that all of them want to see the mandate of GIADEC realized. So whichever way or whichever policy or whichever path will make it possible within the shortest possible time, they are all willing and they are ready to support. And I've had the support and the commitment of the staff so far. And I'm very grateful for that because they've been very cooperative. They've come up with ideas, they've come up with suggestions, and everybody is doing the bit that they can to ensure that whatever we've set in motion is achieved.
So I've asked this question to most of your colleagues that I've had the privilege of speaking to, asking them basically prior to the appointment and when they got into office, what kind of institution did they meet? So what kind of GIADEC did you meet?
Well, so from the introductory statement that I made, I met an institution that, of course, every government and every manager and the vision, that they have of what they think can make the institution grow or realize its goals. When I studied the law, that's the act establishing GIADEC, and I studied a bit of the industry, I was of the view that instead of lumping the entire value chain together and giving it to one person, we can segment it, and that will cook in the investment and the growth of what we want to do. So that if you have someone whose interest is just in mining, our goal will be to ensure that once the bauxite is mined and we have a refinery, we can control and ensure that the mines gives the refinery or the plant the bauxite, and then the refinery also give to the smelter, so that we don't necessarily have to have it all sitting under one umbrella or one in the hands of one person. So that is what I think I have, the diversion that I have brought in place as the new manager. But all in all, the previous management, I believe, took the step that they think would ensure or help them achieve the mandate of GIADEC. This current management has also taken a step that it believes would help us achieve the mandate within the shortest possible time, because we do not really have much time. We need the revenue, and we have to take the steps that will bring in the revenue as soon as possible, and that is what we've done. So you notice that everything has been done with a bit of speed, because we inaugurated a committee. Within 9 months of being in office, we had a committee, we had a selection committee come out with its report on the potential partners GIADEC can work with in developing the refinery and also developing VALCO. So clearly, once we have these two things and we have the agreement, we have definitive agreements with these two companies, I think our mandate as GIADEC will be about 15-20% completed on paper. The rest will be to supervise and ensure that indeed we see the plant grow. When I say grow, we see it built, and then see VALCO functional. That then we can safely say that we have achieved our mandate as GIADEC, and now we can move into the promotions. That's promote the products on the world market as well. So that's what we're doing.
Talking about VALCO, we know VALCO has been in existence for so long. I mean, at a point, I'm told my father even worked there briefly. But how did VALCO get to now come under the ownership of GIADEC, and what does that really mean in plain terms?
So, as you recall, I indicated that GIADEC has a mandate to develop and promote the integrated aluminum industry. And that industry includes mining of bauxite, this refinery, and smelting. The smelter we have is VALCO. Previously, VALCO was more like an island. It was a company which was operating on its own terms and others. But as part of the integrated aluminum vision, when GIADEC was established, the previous government took steps to transfer all of its shares, that's 100% shares the government owned in VALCO, to GIADEC. So GIADEC, as it stands now, holds the shares in trust for government. So GIADEC is essentially, if you're speaking strictly in private sector terms, is the owner of VALCO. But just that because GIADEC is a state corporation, we hold that right and we hold it in trust for the government of Ghana. So we take instructions and directives from the government of Ghana as to what should be done with regard to the shares. So that is how come VALCO came under Ghana, so that we under VALCO, so that we under GIADEC, so that we have a synergy in the way things are done. We cannot have the end of the not the downstream of the midstream, that is the smelting, sitting somewhere on its own, running on its own, without us having any say or control in how things are done. That would not create the synergy that we need to ensure a smooth transition and a smooth operation. That is why I believe that VALCO was brought under GIADEC, and then GIADEC now has the right to determine what's done, what is done, and have an oversight and report to government on what can be done to ensure that VALCO is positioned well or doing well. So that is what I believe has informed that. And I've seen the records, the share transfer, share certificates and everything, moving from government of Ghana to GIADEC, making GIADEC the government's, the owner of VALCO, loosely speaking.
So what's the state of VALCO as we speak now?
So maybe you would have to break your question down when you say it was a state of VALCO.
In terms of infrastructure, in terms of what really is happening at VALCO, in terms of the potential that VALCO holds as we speak.
Yeah, you have made a point that you have information that your father at a point worked at VALCO. I think he can be of a lot of help to us in this conversation. You should ask him how VALCO was when he was working at VALCO, and then ask him for his opinion on VALCO now, and I'm sure you'll get the answer you're looking for. However, I'll do my best to answer your question based on the records that I have inherited. So, I have never worked at VALCO. I'm not an expert in aluminium at VALCO, but at least I know how to manage. So, I have reviewed some documents which were works commissioned by the previous administration, and then some extensive work done by KPMG, because the records will show that in 2022, VALCO was shut down. And VALCO has been suffering recurrent shutdowns because of, like I mentioned, several challenges, financial, power, among others. Key of it being financial, because they are not able to pay their power, they are not able to pay certain debts as and when they fall due. So 2022, 2019, 2022, the previous government took the view that VALCO needs to be revived, because a company which as far back as the mid-90s had a staff strength of about 1,800, now has a staff strength of about 600. So something needs to be done about it. We need to be able to bring VALCO back on track. However, we cannot do it by ourselves as government. We own the shares 100%. We don't have the money to pump into VALCO. We don't have the resources to even manage VALCO, because the records will show that from 2008, that VALCO came into the full domain and control of the states. VALCO started making significant losses year in, year out. Hardly recording profits or hardly even breaking even. So clearly, there was a problem. How do we solve the problem? KPMG came in, go and do the research, go and do the investigation, advise government on how we can do it. KPMG was commissioned, it did this work, came out with this report and recommendations, did an asset evaluation of VALCO, and then recommended that of about 5 options that they gave, the best option on the table, having regard to the law and having regard to the financing arrangement that we're looking for, will be to get an equity investor on board.
Right.
Now, let me break down. People see VALCO, they see a vast land, they see plants, they think that it's supposed to be running into billions in terms of assets. But the records from KPMG's report showed that as of 2022, the net asset value of VALCO was $113 million, with a debt portfolio of almost $400 million. So technically, if you're a commercial person, it's a bankrupt company. Nobody needs to tell you that. So I have seen people throw in the media, VALCO is worth $1.2 billion. That can never be true. And also, I have had a document dated 2025, which also shows that as of 2025, a net asset valuation of VALCO showed that there has been a significant drop in the value to $97 million. And it makes sense if you take into consideration depreciation, because VALCO is plant equipment, among others. And even under our law, there's an annual depreciation rate for such plants and fixtures. So when you factor it in 2 years, 3 years, 3 years timeline from 2022 to 2025, if there's net asset value has dropped to 97, it makes sense when you factor in depreciation. So clearly, it will be very difficult for anybody to argue that the figures by KPMG were inaccurate, because the information from the reports that I myself have read or studied the KPMG, they said whatever information they relied on to come to the conclusion they came to were information supplied to them by VALCO. So unless maybe VALCO misled them at the time, I don't think we can dispute the figures that they came up with. So based on this, a joint memo was sent to cabinet then. And when I say a joint memo, I mean 2 ministries came together and sent a memo to cabinet. That's the Ministry of Lands, which is the sector ministry for GIADEC, and the Ministry of Trade sent a joint memo to cabinet. Cabinet set up a committee to review the proposals from KPMG, and then review the proposals in the memo to cabinet. And then they also recommended the equity investor option as the best option out of the 5. Based on this proposal, Cabinet gave an approval in May 2022 for GIADEC, VALCO to go and look for an investor and get equity in VALCO. When I say equity, maybe for the purpose of those VALCO is now 100% owned by GIADEC or government. All that government want to do is that, you know what, I cannot carry the burden alone. So let's share. There's too much there's too much load. So I want to do burden sharing. Come in, give me some money, inject the capital into VALCO, turn it around, and let me cede a part of my ownership to you. That is all government wants to do, so that we can jointly manage, run it, and turn things around. And I mean, we have countless examples of instances like that. At a point in the history of our country, Ghana Telecom was running aground. We got on board private investment, and we all can see, even though that decision was taken late, we can see that at least we still have it running. Ghana Commercial Bank had gone through a similar phase, and there are countless examples of previously state-owned companies that the government decided to go into partnerships with the private sector, and it has turned around the fortunes of those companies. So that is essentially what the government of the day decided to do. And so the approval came. Pricewater was commissioned as transactional advisors. They did what they could do, but they could not conclude on an investor. Then power changed. So when power changed, I took office. I reviewed documents. I saw what has been done. And I saw the gaps that they identified as Pricewater. So I had a conversation with the minister. I had a conversation with His Excellency, who appointed me to brief them on the state of affairs. And I told them that this is what I inherited. And I think that looking at the present state of affairs, we need to carry on having regard to the gaps that Pricewater identified in the previous search, and then making sure that we bridge those gaps, putting the mechanisms to ensure that we are able to go out there and get the investors. So, after that conversation, we sat down and studied the Pricewater documents, and we noticed that two main things that created a bottleneck in the previous search was power solution and labor retention.
Okay.
Because some of the investors coming on board were of the view that they should be given the power to determine whether they will retain the staff or not.
Right.
And that was not a position that government was willing to agree to. And also they wanted power at a certain cost. So when we noticed that power was going to be a challenge, we put in there as part of the terms of reference of the committee, which was going to review the proposals, that the company that wants to come on board, they should show you how they are going to generate power at a cost that is less and will be efficient and make VALCO more productive and functional and a profit-making entity. Also, let them give you their clear local content plan, that's retention of staff, and increment in the staff strength.
Right.
So these were two key pillars that the committee was working with. So Minister Kong inaugurated his 12-member committee, of which I was not a member. Let me just put that on record. I was not a member.
Right.
But the committee, because of the financial challenges that GIADEC is facing, and because VALCO itself is running losses, we decided that, you know what, if the ministries have experts in-house, VALCO has experts in-house. So why don't we set up an interministerial committee? So we wrote to Finance. Finance brought an expert in-house for public sector investments. We wrote to Energy Ministry, they brought their experts. We wrote to Trade Ministry, they brought an expert, and then the Sector Ministry brought its experts on that. And then VALCO brought its representatives too. And then GIADEC also brought its representatives. So the committee was inaugurated to review the proposals. And then subsequently, they brought out their reports. So we are waiting for further directions on that. The plan is to make sure that VALCO is revived. Nobody wants to go and cede 100% government ownership to anybody. What government wants to do, and government from time immemorial have always wanted, is a functioning, is for a functioning or an operational VALCO. And let me just put this on record. There are people who have this notion that VALCO was built by the first president, of whom I have much reverence for, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. No, VALCO was built as a private company owned 100% by Kaiser and Reynolds. Government was only providing power. That is why we had Akosombo down.
Yeah.
That was part of the negotiations. Government was supposed to give them power. Government had no share whatsoever in VALCO.
Right.
That was the situation until 2008. So when people think that VALCO is a state asset, it became so.
We're just trying to sell it off.
It became so in just 2008. And from the time it became so, VALCO has become a non-functional entity. So the question we should be asking ourselves, if we are genuine and we care so much about the country, is why is it the case that a once functional company comes into government control, under government's control, and is now virtually bankrupt? That is the key question we need to ask ourselves. And then seek to address the issue. I don't think that, the world has moved from the stage where countries were exercising sovereign domain 100% over assets to where they are opening up to invite private sector to ensure that things are done, because at the end of the day, if VALCO is functioning, they will pay taxes to the states.
Right.
More people will be recruited. The conditions of service of the staff will be enhanced. Government gets revenue, forex, because you'll be exporting. A lot of downstream activities will go on. Aluworks has collapsed because VALCO is not able to produce, to supply them with the needed ingots and billets to do their work. So a lot of things depend on the survival of that.
Right. So the move is to infuse energy into VALCO, revive VALCO, and not necessarily to, like people keep saying, to just sell off another state asset.
No. That, like you said, the move is to revive it, make it fully operational. And the plan is not just to, VALCO has a nameplate capacity of 200,000. That's to say that when it was built to be able to produce 200,000 metric tons of aluminum per annum. VALCO now produces barely 40,000 per annum, which is about 20 to 23% of its installed capacity. So in effect, we are pumping power and not getting the needed revenue.
Right.
The records are there to show that we are consistently recording losses. And today, if government of Ghana decides that, you know what, ECG, Greco, VRA, and all the creditors of VALCO go in and reclaim the amount due you, VALCO will not even be able to pay it.
Right.
That is the state we find ourselves in. So the discussions around how do we make it better, it's not about selling, or it's about how do we make it better for all of us. The law, the state of VALCO's books are such that they cannot even decide to even go and borrow. No bank in this country, I have had conversations with some prominent big banks in the country, with that kind of state of affairs, no bank is going to give you the funding to come to do that, and even say that, because if they give you the funding, they want to come and manage. Because you have demonstrated on record that you're not a good manager
to do that. Okay.
So they want to come on board, assist with the management, because that will be project financing. And when someone gives you funds for project financing, they want to have a say.
Right.
So why do you think that someone should carry $600 to $700 million to revive a company and not have a say?
Interesting. You know, just hold your thoughts for me there. You're still watching State of Affairs here on GHOne television. My guest tonight is the CEO of the Ghana Integrated Aluminium Development Corporation, Twumasi Ankrah. We're looking at the state of GIADEC, also touching on VALCO, because I know that a lot of more people out there also are interested in what is happening with VALCO. He said it's not to sell off VALCO. The plan is to rather have a VALCO that is well functioning, because from a staff strength of about 1,800, we are only doing about 600, and that's a worry for the government of Ghana. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Still watching State of Affairs here on GHOne television. I am Joshua Kodjo of Mensah. My guest is Twumasi Ankrah, who is CEO of the Ghana Integrated Aluminium Development Corporation. We're looking at the operations of GIADEC, also touching on VALCO. Well, if you missed that conversation, I'm sorry, but then you can still watch it online because we'll be streaming live as well. Now, let me come back to you. You mentioned earlier in your opening remarks that when you came into office, you realized that the mandate of GIADEC probably had some lapses, and to fill the lapses, we had to own the concession mine and all of that. And so what do you make, and what's the GIADEC's position on claims that government is awarding a bauxite concession to an individual, in this case Ibrahim Mahama?
Those claims, I don't know where they are coming from, and I don't know those behind it. But you recall that recently we issued a presser that GIADEC is not giving concession to anybody, because the new model as we have it is for GIADEC to own the concessions. Previously it was supposed to be given. What we decided to do was to take it and own it. The best we would do would be subcontract to these local mining companies to do the contract, the mining on behalf of GIADEC for fees.
Okay.
Because GIADEC we don't have the equipment,
machinery.
We don't have the machinery, we don't possibly have the expertise in-house to do that work. So we would have to eventually go out there, and that actually is the practice. Because all these big gold mining companies around, they subcontract to Mr. Ibrahim Mahama and other companies, the BCMs, engineers and planners, the AMS and all of that. They subcontract the services to them. Right. So if GIADEC also decides to subcontract services to them, I don't think it's even out of place. It will actually be in line with the existing practice. But the concession, I can state authoritatively, it's not moving from GIADEC to any individual. Now, you will notice that as part of the standard practice has been that the leases can be terminated, can be this, can be done, or cancelled by the minister. But because GIADEC is a strategic national project, based on the conversations with the minister and MENCOM, we decided to put in the leases certain clauses that makes it impossible for the minister alone to sit in his office and even terminate it. He would have to go to parliament, get a certain percentage of members of parliament voting in favor of termination, because we want to create a situation where, in my absence or in the absence of someone who comes after me, one person doesn't come sit down and say that, you know what, I have terminated the agreement, I don't believe in this project I'm giving. So we have put in place certain mechanisms. And I have had, let me just put on, I've had conversations with the two prominent companies that have worked around this bauxite, in Estin Quebec, Rockshore. I've met them, they've come to the office, I've gone to their offices, we've had conversations, I've outlined what government's policy is to them. I have told them that the bauxite concession is not coming to you, it's not coming to this person. It is going to stay with GIADEC. However, GIADEC will need your support with the extraction. And when we get there, we will call on you to come and help. Right. And they have all understood that this is a national strategic project, and they are on board as and when. We will
so the ownership still remains
with GIADEC. So the ownership is going
to go to any of these companies.
Even if you even give a sublease, it still sits with GIADEC.
Right.
So GIADEC will continually have supervisory control over what happens on the concession, and that is non-negotiable. And it's a point that has been made over and over and over and over. So I don't know why once in a while people will throw in the media space, the social media space, government plans to give concession to Mr. Ibrahim Mahama. Not to say that he's not competent to do it. Even if we gave the concession to him, I believe that he can move to site and do it because he has the competence, he has demonstrated that he can do it. But that is not the policy of government.
Right.
And I'm here as a government appointee. I have to follow the policy directions of government. Even if in my heart of hearts I would want to carry the concession and give to him, this is what governments want. And it's also common knowledge that the president is his brother. So if his brother says he's going this way, and he could not convince his brother to go this way, who am I? As let me borrow Chairman Woontumi's statement. Who am I to say otherwise? So I'm following government's policy, and this is government's policy direction. And I can say from where I sit, based on the conversations I've had with these companies I just mentioned, because I mentioned them because they have done some works. According to the records, they have done some works, and they've understood that as and when you need us and you call on us, we will come. Now we understand this is the direction.
So we're all clear in our minds now.
So that's it. That's it. So that's they are clear. The people are clear in their minds. It's just that maybe I don't know whether it's lack of information, whether it's attempt to mislead the public or whatever it is. I don't know the motivation that drives some of these narratives, but the fact is what I have just outlined to you.
Right.
Mr. Ibrahim Mahama is my big brother. I call him Chief. Mr. Ofori. I've spoken to him on several occasions. I've met him, and I've made a point known to them over and over and over that this is where things are now. If tomorrow the president calls and says, Randolph, I have changed my mind, I want to do it this way, it's government direct policy, I'll follow it. But until the policy changes, I am bound to comply with the policy.
So, and you mentioned about the requirements to even get to council.
Yes.
We've made it quite stringent now, so that unilaterally nobody just decides to just wake up and then revoke licenses.
Yes, because, I mean, we should see the project as a strategic national project.
Okay.
And such projects must come with certain protective clauses for people who want to come and put their money in it. We are talking about you wanting someone to come and invest over $1 billion in a refinery, over $1 billion we are talking about in a rail infrastructure or otherwise. They would want a certain degree of comfort to know that when power changes, I'm not going to lose. And I'm not going to lose my investment. And this is coming on the back of what happened in 2017.
Right.
When power changed and then Estin Quebec lost the concession and all of that. So people have in the back of their minds that when power changed, things will happen. So we have to put in clauses to ensure that in the absence of myself in this office, whoever comes would not have the liberty to change things to suit maybe individual preferences. But you have to do things that will benefit the long-term objectives of the country. And that is why we put in those clauses. I think some of the clauses state that you have to even need two-thirds majority of parliament to terminate the concession that has been given to GIADEC.
Wow.
And that has been put in there to ensure that it becomes very difficult to take the leases from GIADEC. So if the plan is to carry it and give it to Mr. Ibrahim Mahama, as they are saying, why would we make it difficult for ourselves? Do you understand?
So it's national interest over whatever private parochial interest
it is national interest, and the country, like I indicated, the country is ready to work with private sector, but the situation which persisted before, where the mines were given to the private sector, the states became a passive rent receiver, among others, is what we are trying to change with the bauxite section.
Right.
Of our resources. This is only pertaining to the bauxite section of our resources. I don't know what's happening in the gold and others, but when it comes to bauxite, it's more, the position is let's try a different path and see what the results will be. Let's try and embark on a value addition journey. Right. Let's make this a national strategic project and see how things pan out. And that's what we are doing.
Okay.
So, and that is why I've had the full support of His Excellency. I've had the full support of my minister since I took office, because they all understand and they all share in the vision, and they all know that this is what will give Ghana some respite in terms of gains in its resources, in the bauxite resources.
Well, let's shift focus a bit from that and talk to me now about your partnership, GIADEC's partnership with TDC and Arise. So, once again, let me say, I'm a servant of His Excellency President John Mahama, and we all work according to what his vision. And like we all read in the famous book, is it The Gods Are Not to Blame? Yeah.
Baba Fakunle, who said, I mean, what an older person would say, sitting. If the young person climbed the tallest of Iroko trees, we will not see. So the president is the one who is leading us. He sees things that we don't see. His vision is to develop an industrial park within the Tema Industrial Enclave.
Okay. So
he called on some appointees of his. We embarked on a trip to go and witness some of these, what he was talking about. So we paid a visit, we liked what it is we saw. We came, we went to report to him, and we all agreed on how it could be done to ensure that the vision that he has is realized. So if you look at GIADEC's law, we have a mandate to develop industrial parks to promote downstream related activities and among others. So the conclusion was that because you have this mandate, lead the transaction under the supervision of your ministry. TDC, according to the records, are the owners of the lands on which VALCO even sits, until someone is able to bring a document to say otherwise. That is what the documents I have studied and seen says, that TDC lands are owned by, VALCO lands are owned by TDC. And when we came into office, I mean, the records I have seen shows that as far back as to 2017 April, VALCO's lease for 50 years expired. So they wrote to TDC for renewal of the lease. I have cited a letter where in October or November 2025, TDC wrote to them and said that we can only renew the lease for you with regard to a portion that is about a little over 200 hectares, where your plant or the smelter sits. The rest of the land, government has indicated that it wants to use it for a strategic national project, which is an industrial park. So we cannot do a renewal for you. And so based on this, we set the ball rolling. TDC as owners of the land, of course, have to be, and GIADEC as having a legal mandate to foresee industrial park, we came in So we had a discussion with the private investor, went back and forth on what the terms should be, what should be in there, who should gain what. And we got the requisite approvals, signed the first MOU. It wasn't a secret, it was put out there. People read it, people saw it. And we were moving to the next phase. The plan is to build an integrated industrial park. Okay. I don't know which part of the integrated industrial park people are struggling to understand. It is an industrial park that has various factories. I heard someone say that the company is into manufacturing of clothing. This is someone who clearly does not even know what the integrated industrial park is about. Because I visited some of their parks within Africa. Yes. There's a lot of companies scattered. So as part of our negotiations, I told them, because we have this mandate to do ABCD, when you develop the industrial park, you will reserve a certain portion of the land just for aluminium-related activities. Okay. So that we can now, when VALCO produces, because the land is close to VALCO, VALCO produces the ingots or the metals, it can quickly be off-take by this downstream company, further processed into the aluminium coils, foils, and then what we use for our roofing sheets and other things, so that the local markets can also use it. So that was the plan. And this is a plan that government agreed to, and that is what we've been doing. Unfortunately, we're out of the country to go and secure funding for some of these activities when we heard in the news that government is selling VALCO lands. Yeah. And I asked myself, which of VALCO's land? Because the records that I have seen clearly shows that the land is with TDC. Yeah. And so far, as we speak, nobody has been able to prove with any positive document that the land belongs to VALCO. So clearly, I concluded that is also part of these misleading information people put out there.
But is it the case that people do not have requisite understanding of these things, and that's why, or that may be what is leading to the speculations and all of those but I mean, allegations?
Assuming it is the case, if it is the case that you don't have the requisite understanding, you seek understanding. Because even the Bible, which I want to believe you study the Bible, says, in all things seek, in all your pursuits, pursue wisdom and understanding. So if you lack the understanding, you have to ask. It's when you ask that you are not satisfied, or you have questions in your mind, or you have unanswered queries, then you can prove further. But without the benefit of the information, you cannot go to town and then mislead the public on a wild goose chase. Now, I have heard people also coming out with a document to show that this is actually the state of affairs. VALCO doesn't own the land. People are saying VALCO owns the land and that there's an EI somewhere that's okay, bring it. If you bring it, and indeed VALCO owns the land, it is not going to change the fact that the project is going to go on. What it will change is that the parties or the shareholders in the transaction may just change. But it will not change the fact that the vision the president has seen
of the industrial
park will go on. All that would be affected is who become parties to the agreement. Case closed.
But it doesn't change the project.
It doesn't change the project.
It doesn't change the vision itself.
It doesn't change the fact that this land has been allocated and it is going to be used for this and it is going to be used for that. It doesn't change it.
Right.
It doesn't change anything. So if you prove your ownership, whatever it is you prove, if you're able to go and bring documents and say, I own it, whoever initially was part of the arrangement because they claim the TDC, of course, says is the owner. That's why they are there.
And they have the documents are there to show.
Yes, and the documents are there to show.
TDC owns the set piece of land.
2017, commonsensically speaking, you will not write to somebody who is not the owner of a property for a right to use the property. In 2017, April, VALCO wrote to TDC for a renewal. The first question as a lawyer I'll ask myself is, if TDC is not the owner of the land, why do you write to them for a renewal of the lease? So that is a question that VALCO itself must answer. I have also cited a document dated as recent as January 2026, where, once again, VALCO is asking for TDC to transfer title in a land to a certain entity. So the question once again is, if you keep saying that TDC doesn't own the land, why do you keep writing to them to give approval or permission? So these are lingering questions that if you claim the land doesn't belong to them, you have to prove. Because speculations won't do. Merely coming to throw dust in the eye to the public won't do. Now we are in an age where, thankfully, people have information or can easily access information. So you can't just throw out misinformation and expect that everybody goes quiet. Documents are there.
Right.
If you believe that you own it, or there's a competing claim, bring your documents. TDC brings its documents. Let's study the documents. When the conclusion is made that, oh, okay, we acted in error by believing that TDC owns the land, but the subsequent document shows that the land belongs to VALCO. Okay, TDC, you lose your place in the transaction.
Replaced by VALCO.
By VALCO. Simple matter.
Right.
The project is going on. There's nothing going to stop it until maybe the president himself says, yeah, it was my vision, now I don't want to pursue it again. That is the only thing that will bring the project to a halt. But I can confidently tell you that the project is going on. It doesn't matter who owns the land. In any case, assuming the land doesn't even belong to VALCO or TDC, our laws, Article 20-18 also, allows the state to exercise the power of eminent domain, to even take over private property for national projects. So if the government believes that this is a national project that will bring a lot of jobs, I have been to I'll show you pictures of the industrial park that we visited. When we entered, the number of young people trooping out of the place, that should tell you the kind of job opportunities we are sitting on. And there are people sitting home who don't have anything to do. They're every day crying for jobs. Every day complaining, I want a job. As I sit here as CEO, I get like countless number of CVs every day. And there's an opportunity to create jobs. And because, I wouldn't say because of people's personal interest or whatever it is, but because of misinformation or because of lack of understanding, which you are not ready to pursue, to understand, you take a position that you are against something that is going to ensure that the country benefits.
It's interesting you mentioned job creation, because there are those who are also of the view that with this whole issue about modernizing and expansion and getting the industrial park, then the traditional staff of VALCO, they're shaky in terms of the security of their jobs as it stands now. What's the assurance you have for them?
So, like I indicated earlier, two of the key things we're looking at, so the two key things we're looking at for in this engagement was local content, that's retention of staff and increase in staff.
Yes.
And power generation and your financial ability, among other things. So that should let you know that as part of the main considerations, we are looking after the staff, because the 600 people who are there, unless of course you make it impossible for you to be employed. That I can't speak for you. But if you are willing to work, just like how you are working now, of course, there will be no reason for the investor or the new management to say leave.
Because that's the fear, that when there's a new management, they would bring their own people and say, you know what, since you've been here, I'm coming in, I'm investing in this, I want my people there. So I don't need, for instance, I don't need Kodjo Mensah here.
And that is why, as government, we have taken the step to ensure that it is part of the key considerations.
Okay.
That you are not going to touch the staff.
Okay.
That is our job. That is why we are there. You are not going to touch the staff. But let me add a caveat. But if the staff makes it impossible for them to be retained, because if, for instance, you take a position where you don't want to, if you're given instruction that you don't work, you are not meeting your targets, and of course nobody wants to retain anybody who is not performing. So of course, and those are purely commercial decisions that will be taken on commercial principles. But the duty of government is to ensure that the staff are protected and secured. So whoever has fears of losing their job, I don't know where that fear is coming from. I don't know what has occasioned that fear, and I don't know what instigated that fear. I saw a presser by the I've forgotten his first name, but I think the last name is Mr. Jiman, who described himself as the leader of the union, VALCO Workers Union, and went on and on talking, saying all sorts of things. I have never even met him. I don't know him. But if he had just exercised a minute pause and reached out to seek understanding of what was happening, he would have known that his fears were misplaced.
Right.
Because then now he has created an impression in the eyes of Ghanaians that he's anti-progress. Because you don't want an investor. The question is, why don't you want an investor? If the investor is coming to pump money and VALCO is going to be better and bigger, why do you fight it? So now you've created a certain image for yourself. And it's sad, because a little inquiry would have resolved his fears. I was not part of the committee, but I have cited the reports. I have gone through the reports, and I know the considerations that were given for whoever was selected.
Right.
So, as for job security, it is number one on the list.
So they can rest assured.
They are rest assured.
Unless they don't.
Unless you don't want to. But if you don't want
to,
you cannot. I mean, employment is not servitude. If you don't want to work, nobody can force you to work.
Right.
That's the point. But if you are willing to work, you'll be there because you've been there even at lower capacity. You are working. Where you are performing at 23%, you are working. So why wouldn't you have a reason to work when you're going to do 100,000 or 200,000 with an increment to 300,000? Where you are doing full capacity, why won't you work? Because full production comes with additional benefits for you. Right. So why would you have the reason not to work?
Okay. Now let's go back to the integrated industrial park.
Yeah.
What's the expected impact on our country's economic development?
So I started by I said something a while ago that when we visited one of the parks in one of an African country, the number of
jobs,
youth, young people, men, women, trooping out. If I'm not exaggerating, at that point in time we saw more than 5,000 people. And from the information, when we inquired, they said these people have finished their shifts. So it runs at 24 hours. It runs 24 hours. So they run a 3-shift system. First shift comes because there are about 20 different factories. Tile manufacturing company, aluminum manufacturing company, they are all in there working. So this person leaves, another comes, and they run 24/7. So clearly, with this example I've given, I don't even need to go into the nitty-gritties of how the country is going to benefit. Your brother or your sister may be fortunate to get a job. More taxes, more revenue, more forex, direct jobs in excess of 5,000, indirect jobs, countless. So why would anybody want to oppose such things? It baffles. Maybe because, like I said, I'm still operating with a private sector mindset, but it is baffling.
Right.
Why anybody would look at a project of this magnitude. All that the investor is asking is provide the land. I am bringing the resources. I'm going to do the marketing. I'm going to bring everything. Let me manage it, and let's both benefit from it. All the employment is going to come from your country. Even before the factory starts functioning, you have to prepare the land. You have to develop the parks. That is job for your artisans and other things. So why anybody is even fighting it clearly beats any reasonable analogy. But I mean, I can't speak for them. I can't hold brief for them. I'm sure they have their own reasons.
Absolutely.
And at the appropriate time, when the president cuts the sword and outlines what informed the policy, maybe by then they will understand, and maybe at that point they may render apology if they are minded to do to the president. I don't need the apology, but they may render the apology to the president for all the things that they said about him. That is up to them.
Renoff, it's been quite exciting and informative speaking to you. But then this is your camera. The people of Ghana are listening to you tonight. Your final words as we draw the curtains on this conversation.
Well, I just want to say that we have a country to build, and we are all contributing the little that we can, and in the best way that we think will work. And all we need from them is their support. We are public servants. If they are uninformed about anything, they have the right under the RTI law, the right to information, to make a request for information so that they can better inform themselves and not be misled to think that things are being done in a way to shortchange the country. Because if Ghana benefits, I benefit as well. I don't know where my daughter, my children will end up subsequently. They may be working at something that I'm struggling to make sure happens today. Right. I don't know. I don't have that clairvoyance. So we just ask that they give us the necessary support. They keep us in our prayers. It's a tough job. It's a tough job. So they should just give us their prayers. They should keep their suggestions coming. And we are committed to make sure that which works for the country is done. And they should be rest assured. VALCO is not for sale. But VALCO is going to be revived and modernized. Government in partnership with private sector, that will be done. An industrial park will be developed, and hopefully we are working hard to ensure that before end of first quarter this year, His Excellency will cut the sword for that project to start. We're also hoping that mid-year, the processes for VALCO's modernization should start.
Okay.
It is part of the plans to ensure that at least, if nothing at all, by the time His Excellency's time comes to an end, VALCO's staff strength should have at least doubled. as part of his promise to the people that he's going to create jobs. So that is what we are doing, and they should give us the support. So far, the reset agenda by the president is on course, and we are all enjoying the benefits of the reset. And that is exactly what we are doing at VALCO and with the industrial park, and even with the bauxite sector. And in due course, we will all see the benefits of the resetting of this sector.
You've talked about the vision of the president, but what about your vision as CEO of GIADEC? When all is said and done, when you have to leave office, what kind of legacy do you want to leave?
When all is said and done, and I'm leaving office, I don't want to see, because I know it takes time for some of these infrastructure, especially refinery, to be built. But I want to leave office knowing that during my time, at least, Ghana started the construction of its first refinery, and if not even done with the first phase of it, it is ongoing. And during my time, VALCO, at least, was modernized and got to a certain level where more Ghanaians were getting jobs, more Ghanaians were getting the benefits, direct or indirect. And at least GIADEC as an institution has become financially viable and very relevant in the scheme of things within the country. This is a legacy that I want to leave as CEO of GIADEC.
Fair enough. Nice having the conversation with you.
Thank you very much.
Well, so that's it for State of Affairs here tonight. I hope you've been informed, and now you know the details about the real issues surrounding VALCO and, of course, the operations of GIADEC. I'm Joshua Kodjo Mensah. Good night.